Welcome to the As We Live and Breathe podcast. My name is Natalie Morrison, and I'm joined today by Merilyn Keskula. Merilyn is founder of a company called Mylky Moon Lab, a moon mentor, speaker, entrepreneur, and self-confessed lunatic. Merilyn guides our new monthly new moon sessions, and she hosts many events online and around the world. She also has just released her new book, Moon Power. So Merilyn, we're delighted to have you joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolute pleasure. I've really been enjoying your monthly moon ceremonies and just really getting so much from it. So I'm really excited to cover this topic. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
So I guess I'd like to start with maybe actually we start with connecting with the lunar cycle, a little bit more about your background, I suppose.
Absolutely. That's a really good question. Well, I guess I can actually start from the background because that kind of led me to the moon. So my background, as I guess with a lot of people who work now in the wellness scene, I was definitely not in the wellness before. So I was working in marketing quite a long time. I was working in fashion industry. I was an entrepreneur, working for a corporate, so doing a lot of different things until I realized that this continuous sort of linear way I was perhaps living and working wasn't really natural and wasn't really working for me, because what happened was constant sort of growth and like working really hard, reaching for the peak was always followed by some big crash or burnout. And after going through those kind of peaks and crashes quite a few times, I just got so tired of it, and I felt like something is definitely wrong. This is not the way we're supposed to work. And I actually had to quit my job in the corporate because my body, my soul was just not able to do that any longer. And also I saw it was quite a kind of magical moment there where I actually saw women very much working like men, like in a very linear masculine way, and really not honoring their own time at all. Like, any sort of space around what we were creating. And that was kind of, quite shocking for me in some ways. And I had to quit the job. I took some time off, and I really had like a quite a good deep look in not what I'm doing, but how I'm doing things. And that was really my portal to Mylky Moon Lab and the whole cyclical work and cyclical way of living, what I'm sort of working with now and what I'm sharing. So actually the first sort of tool or cycle what I started to work with was not the moon, it was the menstrual cycle, because the menstrual cycle was such an intimate sort of map for me to really understand how my own energy is ebbing and flowing all the time. How sometimes I just have a lot of energy. I want to be social. I have a lot of confidence. And then, 2 weeks later, I am just in bed most of the time with no motivation to really do anything. So that was my kind of first understanding how much we're actually affected by cycles. And the moon just came to me as the next tool, which actually became a more sort of accessible tool and the more universal tool, because the menstrual cycle is not available, obviously, for everyone to use, as of only women who are in their menstruating years have menstrual cycle. And also, a lot of us are on the pill, or, we have some other issue, or perhaps pregnancy or anything else, what might create a situation where we actually don't have this tool available for us. But the moon is available for everyone. So there's no, gender, it doesn't matter where you are, where you live, what you do, like nothing matters. The moon is this beautiful tool, which is really giving us this blueprint of how we should live our lives. When do we have energy to actually go out there and sort of push and do and live in this kind of perhaps, more masculine way. And I'm not saying like masculine in a way like, manly, but just in a way that we're giving, we're out there, we're pushing. And when is the time to go deeper into our own soul and just step back for a moment and slow down and start receiving? So that is kind of one of my main interests with the moon. It just shows us when is the time to rest and when is the time to do, without us constantly swimming against the current, so to say.
Yeah, that feels really important. Our culture is just constantly, and it's just seems to be speeding up, and more 24/7 all the time, even compared to when I used to work in a corporate as well. And even back then, 7 years ago now, it felt always on. And yeah, I can just imagine that that's just continuing. And yeah, and that idea of everyone having these, regular times to unwind feels very important for all of us, and very much kind of in line with how our ancestors, I suppose, used to live. The moon was so central to kind of the experience of being a human.
Absolutely. And, this is exactly the case, that our ancestors were living in such closer connection with the sun, the moon, the seasons, also astrology. So, we have very much kind of stepped away from that. And this is one of the reasons why we often feel that we don't belong. We often feel like we're just floating around on earth, and nothing is really holding us, that we don't have any sort of direction in terms of that somebody would give us the map and say this is how life is lived, because we are just overwhelmed by all this expectation and like this always on life and the technology and everything what we sort of are expected to do, expected to be in this world. And what we lose is we lose this inner trust and this inner authority to actually have our own connection with the energies around us and the energy within us, and make our own decisions how we can live and work in the best possible way. So I think it's just a really important connection to re-establish.
And is that so? Just curious about your book. So Moon Power, it's called. I'm really interested in that title. I guess in relationship with this idea of, like, I suppose balancing masculine and feminine energies, and yeah, maintaining our well-being. Is that kind of the the crux of what you're offering in that book, or could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the moon power, the kind of how to say, the tagline or the subtitle of this is the empowerment through cyclical living, and um, it is completely focused on the moon cycle. So it's a very accessible and very much kind of an introductory book for people who want to just peek and step into this world, and you don't really need any sort of former experience in working with the moon or working with astrology and so on. It is meant to be like your first step into this world and really get you started, and really kind of open this portal perhaps to start your own experience and start your own relationship with the moon. And the way it's structured is that it sort of has two parts, and the first is really about talking like why it's important to work with the moon, what it could give you, which is exactly this sort of blueprint or the map, right? And I go through every moon phase, so you, like the reader, would know exactly, okay, so what's it mean when it's the new moon, what does it mean when it's the full moon, what is the energy like, what is the first quarter moon, last quarter moon, and the dark moon as well, which is actually as important as all the other phases. um, so it really sort of breaks everything down into, again, in a very simple and poetic way perhaps. And it's what I really like this book is it's kind of like a workbook. So I really encourage people to like use it as a workbook. You can underline things, you can write things in there, you can write your little notes in there and so on. So it's really meant to be like a cyclical book in a way. Like, don't just read it and then put it away, but really just use it. The second part goes deeper into the astrology. So what is one of my big interests is also how can we perhaps discover or reconnect with all these different aspects of our soul through moon work. And actually, that is quite deep work. But again, in the book, it's sort of explained in a very simple way. So it's again very accessible. Where I actually go through every astrological sign, so every zodiac sign, because the moon shines the light or moves through one energy or one sign in 2.5 days, which means actually in every 2.5 days, the energy on Earth and the energy which impacts us is changing. So the whole second part of the moon power book, it really explains how is the energy changing and how to work with those energies in a kind of day-to-day practice, as well as during the new moon and the full moon in those particular signs.
That's really fascinating, yeah, and that's an element that I've really connected with during your monthly ceremonies with us, because I don't think I really fully appreciated that, that there are all these different energies that are moving, throughout the course of the month as well, and it really has helped me kind of tune into, there are, these sort of like, I've always felt this, and I think it's something that I notice with others around me, like for a few days, everyone's feeling a little bit more buoyant or, a little bit more upbeat. And then for a few days, there almost just seems to be like a shift towards, a slightly different feeling that feels more collective rather than just being, an individual experience. And I think that's really beautiful, to start to really see those patterns and kind of also have a framework for where they're coming from, and the richness of what you share in terms of, I suppose, quite archetypal stories and imagery and ways of connecting with different qualities of the moon and the planets, and also within ourselves. As you say, it's really deep, and there's a lot to connect with, and there's a lot that it sort of reveals within you, where you were just like, oh wow, yeah, okay, I do have that kind of maybe fiery Leo energy or something like that, and how is that manifesting in me, at this time. I really love it.
Absolutely, it is so fascinating, and I always say moon work is soul work. Don't take this lightly, and it always makes me laugh when I host these courses online. It's my signature course called 28 Moon Mornings. And people come to this course thinking like, oh, they're going to learn a little bit more about the moon. And at the end of the 28 days, I actually just finished one yesterday. They always say, people are literally crying and saying, I never thought I'm going to get so much. I never thought it's going to go so deep, because they just kind of stepped on board thinking, yes, they will know more about the moon, but actually the amount they learn about themselves, this is the crux of it. This is the soul work, what I'm interested in. Not just telling you like, oh, do this during the new moon or do this during the moon in Cancer. This is not my interest. My interest is to actually show the light into these different aspects of your soul so you can rediscover yourself through working with the moon.
Yeah, it's really, I love that about your style. Because I do find sometimes with astrology it does feel a little bit prescriptive, and just because it's the same thing for everybody, right? It's like, okay, well, well, personally I'm not really connecting with that bit, maybe a little bit that bit, but actually because you're giving us information that's just like a little bit a step behind that, like it's more like, yeah, you really explain it so well. So it's like, okay, actually, I can really recognize this. And it just feels so much more meaningful and so much, yeah, more helpful, actually, I think, as well.
Mm, I mean, if astrology wouldn't be valid, why would all these ancient tribes and traditions and cultures have it equal to science and politics and all the other sort of disciplines, right? Like astrology was high up there. Astrology was guiding like the whole life, also the political life and the leadership. So they were not stupid. They were not just like believing in some voodoo stuff, right? They actually really knew how to work with it. And I think what has happened is like this mainstream media, or like how we see astrology now, is like just reading those the paragraph about our sun sign, which is actually, I'm sorry, but it's complete bullshit, because the sun sign just shows like a piece of your toenail, right? But you are a whole person. So through the sun sign, we actually know nothing about you, because there are so many different aspects. There are so many different expressions of this one sign. And the sun sign actually, means nothing in the bigger picture of where all the other planets are at the time of your birth, for example, where your moon is, where your, what is your rising sign, what are the aspects and the dynamics between all those different planets. So astrology is something so much deeper than just taking like this very one-dimensional view, what we have seen in the, perhaps the last decades.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'm curious, I suppose, to explore maybe just a little bit around the practices that you take during the course of a lunar cycle, maybe during the new moon or the full moon or the dark moon. How is it that you're kind of, I suppose, practically connecting with these energies? Do you take any rituals or ceremonies or anything like that personally?
Yes, that's a really good question. So again, I sometimes call myself, perhaps a bit radical or perhaps a bit different to like other from other people working with the moon or working in this kind of scene. Um, whatever I do, I call them modern rituals, because to be honest, I'm not the person who floats around in a goddess dress in my home every day, burning candles and chanting mantras, right? I'm just not doing that, because I'm quite practical, and I just like modern stuff, so to say. So the way I work with the moon is actually, it's very intuitive, and it's completely trusting what wants to actually come through me at that time. What is really important for me is to actually just honor those times. For example, it's really important for me to honor the dark moon, which is 3 days before the new moon, because this is a time when the energy around us is the lowest. This is a time when we're almost like sitting in this cosmic womb where everything is possible. We're sitting in this time of like ultimate potential, ready to be reborn like a baby. And what is sort of the task or the call at this time is to really allow yourself to completely empty out, so you're actually ready to receive this next cycle. So uh, however I'm designing that time can be completely different to each month, because it depends where I am, what I have to do, etc., etc. But what is kind of my main aim is to be conscious about this happening at the time. And that's why I don't usually have like very specific rituals. It just really again depends where I am, what I'm doing. But I'm really honoring this time with giving myself as much space as possible, giving myself time, really allowing myself to rest. I think this is more important than like, creating another ritual for your to-do list. And also, for example, during the full moon, which is like the opposite of a dark moon, where the energy is the highest, is sometimes like even too overwhelming, because we have so much of this cosmic vibration around us. And the full moon is really the time when metaphorically we're sort of sitting on top of this mountain, and the energy has been building for 2 weeks. So we have been climbing this mountain for 2 weeks since the new moon, and we're now on top of it, and we're ready to go down. So with the waning moon, after the full moon, we're starting to climb down the mountain, walk down the mountain. So we're sitting there on the top of a mountain, and I always say, like, if you are on the top of a mountain after all this climb, would you just say, oh, okay, great, yeah, I'm gonna go down now? Or would you actually take a breath and just take a look at the vista, like just be grateful what you did, celebrate your achievement? And that is very much the energy during the full moon as well. What I'm always trying to adhere to is, again, like, I don't really need like a specific ritual, but I need to take a pause and just kind of, even if it's 10 minutes, to just think, okay, where am I right now? What do I have to celebrate? What am I grateful for from those last 2 weeks, perhaps? And because we have this beautiful energy around us where actually everything is illuminated, it's a great time to see what works and what doesn't in your life. Like, what is there to be honored and respected and celebrated, and what is there what you know that you need to let go and release in the next 2 weeks, when the energy is sort of all about release and completion and letting go. So again, like, it just, whatever wants to emerge, whatever ritual wants to emerge, like maybe it's just journaling or just taking some space or taking a bath. This might differ each month, but it's just about taking this moment. That's what's important for me.
That's interesting. So I guess what you're saying, because for me, I always, I guess I saw the new moon as a sort of intention setting time. But it sounds like also the full moon is another opportunity. So we kind of have two opportunities throughout the lunar cycle. Like maybe setting and yeah, is that kind of how you would approach it as well? Like
Mm.
setting something at the beginning of the lunar month, and then also just checking in halfway through and maybe adapting when you have that extra clarity.
Yes, absolutely. Because the new moon is, it definitely is a time when, as the energy is starting to rise, um, the we get like this boost of, um, like this boost to create, the boost to grow, the boost to build. So it's great to set intentions during the new moon. But what I always say to people, and what I kind of keep saying more and more now, is don't stress yourself out by just, again, adhering to something like, oh, I need to sit down, burn the candles and write down 10 things. If that's not what you need to do, if that's not what you are really naturally called to do not create another item in your to-do list that you have to create like 10 intentions for that month. The main thing I always want to simplify is, perhaps, write down one commitment, write down one intention for this particular month, and perhaps allow it to be guided by the energy, by the zodiac sign the new moon is in, and just write down one thing, like one wish from your heart, and then work with this, have this to be your topic of the month, so to say, so we don't overwhelm us. Like, the world is so overwhelming, the work is so overwhelming without having like another item in your to-do list. And full moon definitely gives us this moment to actually see, okay, how did I do? What did I actually achieve? What did I allow to grow in this last 2 weeks when I set the intention? And yes, it really definitely gives us this better understanding also, like, where do I need to create space in order to actually be able to align myself better to my truth, align myself better to what I actually want to create. One of the best sort of pieces of advice I've heard recently is, we need to learn how to retain our energy, how to contain our energy. So whatever we have, we're not, we really have to build it up now. And when you start giving it away, when you start, like, creating all the offerings and just doing, you're actually not really retaining and holding this precious energy.
Yeah, and I really like how you bring that into the monthly themes as well. Like, or that image of the mountain that you gave us. That just because it's a new moon doesn't mean you need to like charge into doing loads of things on day one. Like, you can take a few days to ramp up and just allow that to gradually build rather than, just a sort of on-off switch, I suppose, as well.
Completely, because really all those energies are gradual, and it's very much, it is hard. I completely understand it, and I know from my own experience how hard it is to actually sort of go against the norm, so to say, because we are, we feel this pressure, we feel expected, we feel that it's expected from us a lot of times to create something tangible, create something what people can see, and this inner work is often, something which is, it feels like it's non-productive, that nothing is happening. But it's really, I think this moon work is really helping us all, hopefully, to see better the potency of inner work, the potency of actually doing things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something tangible. You need to know the direction first before you kind of jump ahead and do things. And I think that's what the moon is really showing us, or kind of giving us the timing for.
And how much of our consciousness, our conscious world only really accounts for about 1% of the overall mind, and I often find when I take a day off, like the other day, I just didn't really have much energy, and I spent the whole day practicing guitar, which is my new COVID project, and a great way of kind of just zoning out. And but by the end of the day, I'd like really come into a lot of clarity actually around a lot of things that had been sort of circling around in my mind for days. And I just realized that, there's a lot of processing that's going on, subconsciously as well. And I guess that's really what the moon stands for, isn't it? It's that sort of like work that's not necessarily visible, but it's there,
Exactly. It's exactly about allowing those processes to happen, because they are equal to whatever we're putting out there. And in fact, they're even more important, because what we're putting out there is exactly just this, like 5% is just like the tangible sort of form of something, what we have been doing as inner work, what we have been nurturing as inner gifts. So yeah, we really need to kind of come back and allow ourselves to process this and really, grow those gifts inside.
Amazing. So Merilyn, could you just share, I know we touched on a few things. So we have your book, your courses, your monthly sessions with us. Could you just share a little bit more about how people can get connected to your work, where they can find you, all that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So I'm obviously on Instagram. So I'm just Mylky Moon Lab is my tag.
And that's Mylky with the Mylky, right?
Exactly. So Mylky Moon Lab. And on my website, www.mylkymoonlab.com, spelled the same way. And one of the kind of sort of perhaps easiest ways to do something with me is to join the lab membership. So the lab membership is kind of like a monthly subscription where people get daily moon notes, so they know exactly where the moon is with my kind of channeled guidance for the day. And also I do weekly moon labs where I meet everyone online once a week, exactly at the time of a new moon, full moon, first quarter and last quarter, to just kind of go through what the energy is like, and kind of have this beautiful kind of check-in with a community. And also I do one-on-one mentoring quite a bit as well. So I work with people individually, because the moon work, as we already said, it's soul work, right? So it can go quite deep, and it's quite unique when you start working with your own birth chart and your own sort of like where your planets are actually, and where your moon sign is, and how the moon sort of is mapped on your own chart. So it becomes more and more kind of deep and interesting. So I do that, and my signature course, 28 Moon Mornings, that runs 3 times a year as well. So I think that's about it, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
currently. It's quite a bit, but I'm doing quite a lot of collaborations and different things.
Yeah, because
With
you also you provide some insights for Leo Kosendai, right? Who's my teacher for his app, third year.
yes, exactly. So I do quite a few collaborations, and with Leo, I've been writing the moon tips for the third year app for quite a while.
Mhm.
So when you go to his moon meditations, then you can always see like a little moon tip for each day.
Yeah,
So lots of exciting stuff.
yeah. He's teaching me how to play the gong at the moment, which has just been such a delight.
He's a very special teacher, and yes, I very much got into the gong as well. Very much thanks to him.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm great with the moon stuff as well. I'm really looking for, maybe we could do a collab sometime actually, because I think it's just so wonderful to channel, the different gongs, with the different planets that are tuned to the different planets and so on, and really kind of harnessing those energies. I think is just fabulous, really incredible to work with.
It's amazing, and I think more and more also my work is evolving towards really embodying the moon energy in different ways. And one of the ways is through movement or sound, or working with all these different um, disciplines to actually experience it for yourself rather than just hear about it.
Yeah. Oh well, can't wait to keep following along your journey and to learn more and to get to experience a lot more of what you have to offer. It's all just really exciting, and I really love the modern approach you take, and yeah, just how clear and down to earth you are with something that can easily be quite quite out there.
Yeah, I think we really have to kind of make it more accessible to people. And I'm definitely not the one who has been meditating in Himalayas for most of my life. I've been very down to earth and working in industry and so on. So I think it just needs to be something what people can understand, what is not somewhere out there, but is what is actually within us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again at our next new moon ceremony as well. And yeah, those are part of our
Thank
monthly
you. I
membership.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so people can join through our monthly memberships, or they can just come for a drop-in class. And yeah, they've just been growing into a really beautiful, connected community of souls. Actually, I'm really, just really honoured and delighted to see how that's starting to grow. And yeah, really, really thank you for that as well.
You're so welcome. It has been such a delight, and it has been really beautiful to see the same faces coming back month after month
Yeah.
as well. So it seems to be something important for them as well.
Yeah. I know we're not supposed to have rituals, but it is something that I'm really finding has been really beneficial, because it's in my calendar. And it just kind of, yeah, it really helps me set that time aside, and gives me a lot of inspiration as well, and yeah, a lot more context than I'd find on my own. So yeah, really, really, really grateful for that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I love it.
All right, Marilyn. Well, have a lovely couple of weeks, and I will see you again soon.
Absolutely. I see you at the next new moon.